Today's tutorial is from Sunday Girl Designs. This is the third tutorial I've made on her patterns. This is the Boxy Cosmetic bag. I'm using fabrics from K&A Custom Fabrics, my threads from Wizardry, my zipper tape is from So Majestic, my webbing is from the Emporium, my tag is from Heartwood and Hide. This pattern has two different views, view A and view B. View B is a simpler view. It is the easier sew. All you do is you get the pattern piece that looks like this shape, you cut out an exterior and a lining. That's pretty much it. Now I am sewing this version today because this is the first time I've sewn this pattern and I just want to give myself a little bit of an easy way to get into it. But I definitely want to make the B version, the B view, because you use 3 different prints and you use piping and it looks great. So this is just a quick version for those of us that just want to experience a pattern a little bit easier the first time we go around, and then we try out some more fancier techniques. So let's get started making this Boxy Cosmetic bag. The first thing I will do to get this pattern started is I will pull out my exterior piece. I'm going to pull out the webbing, which is what I'm using for my handles, and I'm also pulling out some rivets. You do not need rivets to do this pattern, it's just what I'm going to do. So I use the pattern pieces to make the marks for the strap. And then I punched a hole on the ends of the webbing, about the same place where it would be based on the pattern. I'm just going to use the rivets to secure this strap so that I can sew it on. I'm not going to actually rivet them in place just yet. I'll do that off camera, but this will be just a good way for me to get everything a little secured so that while I'm sewing it, it's not shifting and moving around. And I like to add rivets to patterns anyway. So this is the way the straps look at this point. If you want, if you're still nervous about them maybe shifting while you're sewing, you can even put some glue down or double-sided tape, of course, and kind of secure it that way. What I will do is I will sew a box around this section here at the bottom, maybe about 1 inch of a square, and that will secure that. And then off camera, I will set the rivets. I'm also going to add a tag, and so for the tag placement I will probably just put it a little bit further down, kind of centered in between my handles. I'm going to sew up these steps and then we will come back for the rest of the construction. I attached the handles and my tag. Now it's time to add the zipper to this bag. So we're going to add it to the top. You can start with whichever side you want. I'm going to be using 2 zipper pulls, so it doesn't matter for me, but if you have one side that you want to be your front and you're only using 1 zipper pull, you would make note of that. So this is the exterior. I'm going to start by sewing this onto the lining first. The lining piece looks the exact same as the exterior in my case. This one though does not have any interfacing on it. I'm using a cotton canvas, like I said, from K&A, and it's very sturdy. The exterior has fleece, and that's really all I need. So nothing on this one. What I like to do is I like to have my lining right sides up, and I'm going to put my zipper tape down right sides up. Now the pattern tells us that we are not going to sew from edge to edge of the fabric. We're actually going to start sewing a little bit away from my edge. The pattern tells you that measurement. I don't want to give out the measurement, but just make note that you will start sewing a little bit in from the edge of the fabric and then stop sewing that same amount away from the fabric. You will do that with both the lining and the exterior when sewing this pattern. Since we are not starting at the edge, it is very important for us to back stitch at this step. You can see that my zipper tape is longer than this pattern piece. That just is going to make it easier because my pulls aren't attached yet, and so having that extra room will help me to attach my pulls whenever it's time for me to attach them. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to baste these 2 pieces together. I have my zipper tape right up against the edge of this lining piece. I'm going to baste across, and then whenever I come with the exterior to attach it, I will sew with the full seam allowance then. Now that I have the zipper attached to the lining, I'm just going to take my exterior piece Place it right sides down. We're going to make sure we do not get the handle or the strap attached in this step. We're going to match up those sides and that top edge, and now we're just going to sew that same way from that measurement that is given in the pattern to the other measurement given in the pattern across the exterior with the full seam allowance. So what I will do is I will actually turn this piece over so I can sew directly on the previous stitch line, just with a bigger seam allowance. Now that we have these two pieces sewn together, we are going to flip them so that they are wrong sides together, and now we're going to top stitch. I'm going to leave this edge unattached and top stitch just where my previous stitches started. I'm not going to close up that opening between the exterior and the lining. I'll just top stitch 1/8 of an inch away. I just want right up against that edge I just sewed. Now that we have that step sewn, we're going to do the same thing to the other edge of the zipper. The way we'll do that is we'll bring the exterior right sides together with the exterior. The lining will be right sides together with the lining. We're going to take the time to clip everything together, making sure to keep those handles out of the way. They will want to come up and get in the way, so we'll be pushing them down. We're also going to make sure we take the time to match up the sides. If you wanted to based on this step, you could. I just find it a little easier not to at this point, but you definitely could do that. I'm going to clip everything in place. I'm going to clip down here as well, just to prevent any unnecessary shifting of the lining. So there's the lining clipped together. Let's add in that exterior, same way, matching up the sides and that top edge. I'm going to go ahead and clip that exterior with it on the side, even though we're not sewing there. We're going to sew with that same seam allowance, but we're also going to sew leaving that gap on this. So we're going to stitch in between those two gaps, just like we did on the previous step. Then we're going to flip this out and top stitch as well. I'll go ahead and do that off camera, and also I will add my 2 zipper pulls while I'm off camera and have this step completed, just so we can go on to our next step and move further along with this pattern. I have my zipper completely attached, pulls on, and I even trimmed down the zipper here. Now what I'm going to do is I want to add 2 pull tabs to both sides of the zipper. So while I'm going to attach the pull tabs to the exterior, I do not want the lining caught at all. So I'm going to open it up and get in there to sew it. This is a little bit of a tricky step, not hard. If you're nervous, you can even sew it from your lining side, but if you do it that way, you'll have to be really careful of it not shifting. So for me, what I'm going to do is I am just going to pull this out of the way and make sure I go slow to keep it out of that lining piece. So I'm just using a piece of webbing folded over, and I'm going to have the raw edge of the webbing against the raw edge of the zipper. The pattern does give you a way to do this with fabric if you prefer to do it that way. I'm just going to be basting this in place. I have it centered right on the zipper teeth, and I'm just going to sew across a few times to have this connected. I'll do this on both sides. I have both of my pull tabs on, and now I need to sew the sides. So we have the side with the zipper, and then we have what we'll consider the bottom side. So what I need to do is I need to put exteriors right sides together and linings right sides together. Now whenever I first started looking at this, I'm like, how do I do that? I don't understand. And then it finally hit me and I understand. So if yours looks like mine, the first thing we'll do is we will clip these lining pieces together and go ahead and get them stabilized, established, whatever you want to call them. But let's just get these clipped together first. Now let's flip this exterior so that it's going to be right sides together, or be able to be put right sides together with the exterior. Now, if it were me, I'd probably just bind this. So if I do this again, which I'm sure I will, I'll probably just bind the corners and put them all together and do it. But I understand why she's doing this, because a lot of people hate binding. And this is a way for her to give sewists a way to avoid bonding if they don't like it so much. So now what we have is, here's our exterior, and here is the exterior with the zipper. So now we can clip these pieces together. If your pieces are a little off, it's probably just due to different sizes in the zipper. Just center it on there. We can trim everything up at the end. So now that we have this, what we're going to do is we're going to sew these two pieces separately. That's why we have this gap here. So let's go ahead and put the exterior down and sew with the seam allowance given in the pattern, and then we'll do the same thing for the lining, keeping these unattached. Now that we have these two pieces sewn, we'll repeat those same steps on the other side. And then after we do that, only thing we'll have left to do is to box the corners and finish everything up. So this is what I have at this point. Both of these pieces are sewn, our corners are left open, but we have this gap in the lining. Now technically, how much can come through this gap, especially since it's going to be at the top on the side? Not a lot. So you really could be okay just leaving it. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tack this lining. You can see that opening right there. I'm just going to sew across there to attach it just to the zipper. I am not going to attach this lining piece any to the exterior piece, but this opening here, I'm just going to tack it down so that there's even less of a chance of anything coming out. So the way I'm going to do it is I'm just going to come over so I can feel the teeth, and I'm just going to go over them a few times. So it'll be no more than like 3 stitches just to get that little spot closed up, so I have even less of a worry of anything coming through there. Is it necessary? Probably not. Do I have anxiety? Yes, I do. So I'm going to go ahead and do it. Definitely feel free to skip that if you don't feel it's necessary. Now what we want to do is, if you have a zipper that doesn't open well from the wrong side, go ahead and reach in and make sure yours is open. Mine opens easily, but I'll still go ahead and get it kind of started so I don't have to worry about it so much. But what you need to do now is to box these corners. This is your exterior, this is your lining. This is what it should look like at this point. I tacked down that little spot there on the zipper, so that's good. And now we gotta worry about these corners to get that really nice boxy shape. So I'm gonna show you how to do it. I'm gonna flip it over. This is the exterior. This is the way you want it to look. And you're like, how do I get it there? So this is the way I do it. I go ahead and fold it in that right angle. That's pretty simple. We can figure that out, easily understand it. And then I take a clip and I put it right in the center of one, and then the center of the other one. So that's why we look there. Then we're going to open up the corner and push those 2 center marks together. Now you may have to do a little bit of finagling to get it to line up perfectly, but you should be able to get it pretty close to perfect on this. Like on this, with the seam on the other one too, I was having a little bit of gapping, so I'm just going to try to pull it up a little bit, but it's okay if it's not exactly perfect. You just want to try to get as perfect as you can. You can choose to butterfly this seam or have it going to one side. I'm going to butterfly. So this is what it looks like, and let's pull this out, and you can see that is that square shape, and your zipper's right here. We'll sew each of these sides. We'll do the same thing on this side. We will do the same thing for the linings except for one. The pattern tells us to leave one open so that we can go in there and leave that as an opening to turn the bag. Now if you wanted to close some of it and just have a smaller opening, you can, but I'm going to go ahead and leave it all open. So I'm going to sew all of these corners the same way with the seam allowance in the pattern except one. I will reach my hand in that one, flip this bag right sides out, and then close this one afterwards. So that's how I'll do mine. Let's go ahead and just see how we sew one, and then we'll sew the rest off camera, just so we're not sewing everything on camera for an hour and wasting all your time. So here is how that looked once it's sewn. Go ahead and complete the other ones, and then when I come back, I'll have this turned right sides out, the opening closed. Everything will be done except for us to just admire how beautiful it looks. My adorable little Boxy cosmetic pouch is done. This is so cute. Now I've had this pattern for a long time and I just put off sewing it, but I know I'll be sewing it more and more. It's very wrinkled. I have not ironed it, and also I know that even if I don't iron it, after some time passes, some of the wrinkles will fall out. So I'm not ironing it today, but it looks great. I love the shape. This is super easy. Now for the harder version, this would be one piece. You would have piping around here, and then this would be a different piece and a different piece here. So you'd have more color and just a little bit of a different construction. So I definitely want to do that, but maybe I'll just sew a few more of these first. This was super fun. Let's open it up. I can think of so many uses for this adorable little pattern. Plenty of room inside. Lining, let me make sure you can see that. Lining fits really well. No gapping, nothing baggy in there. Some things I would do differently next time is I think I will use foam next time. I definitely will do this construction, even though I prefer binding. The way it looks inside, that smooth opening and just really a clean look, I love that. It wasn't too hard for me to do it, so I will definitely do her construction next time. My webbing is a really solid webbing. I did melt the ends of the webbing, so I don't have too much to worry about, but I might, if I used a different webbing, I definitely would, but I might even put like a little contrast here just to fancy it up a little bit. But I have zero complaints with how gorgeous this turned out. Great pattern. And of course, using beautiful fabrics helps. My fabrics from K&A Custom Fabrics. My webbing is from the Emporium. Zipper tape is from So Majestic. Tag is from Heartwood and Hyde, and this pattern is from Sunday Girl Designs, and it's adorable. You definitely got to try it out. Thank you so much for spending some time with me sewing up something so cute, so adorable. I hope you have time to sew something up that's just as adorable as this in your sewing room. And thanks again for watching another tutorial of mine.